From Del Rio, Texas, home of Lake Amistad, your host, Rob Wade. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive recorded live 28 February 2015. Episode 131. Neutral Corners. Well, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive, and I'm your host, Rob Wade, and I'm still going solo because, yes, we are still looking for some unsuspecting victim, person looking for an opportunity to be a co-host on the show here. And obviously, we'd like to be somebody who is a diver, or at least is getting ready to embark on that great adventure we call scuba diving. So if you're in the Del Rio area and you've seen the show and thought, you know, maybe I can do this kind of thing, please let us know via email or phone call, or jump into our Facebook page, whatever. Let us know, and we'll bring you into the studio and just run you through a little bit of practice, tryouts, let you see what that's like. Because the neat thing is, with this software, I can actually do a fake broadcast, and it's recorded locally, so you can kind of critique yourself, which is pretty convenient. It's kind of neat to be able to try some things out, see how you look, see how get an idea how you sound. The interesting thing is, a lot of people have no idea what they sound like through a microphone on a headset. And so it can be a little disconcerting when you first put the headphones on, you're talking in the microphone, and you're thinking, do I sound like that? And the fact is, to everybody else, it's exactly how you sound. So if you don't like the way you sound, then, you know, maybe, you know, try some voice affectation. You know, we kind of joke in the media world and acting world, we kind of joke about some of the voice affectations that you stereotypes, I guess, if you will, in radio broadcasting. Typically, you know, what we call throwing up on the mic. You know, that's right. We're glad to welcome our fellow scuba divers into the show this week. You know, it sounds like they're just throwing up on the microphones, just blah, 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 which is fun to have. You know, it's fun to make fun of. And excuse me a moment while I bring Ronan, who was yelping, to get up on the chair here. And for those of you who never met Ronan, here he is. Say hi to everybody. He's just like staring at us like, what in the world do I do with that? And you can see right behind me, I already have one of our fur kids, our little dachshunds that are stuck behind me. It's a kind of a ritual. They like to sit behind me in the chair. So I'm always, you're thinking, well, you might have been thinking, watching me sit here, that I'm sitting on the edge of the seat because I'm trying to keep good posture. Well, that is something I do even at work. But I'm kind of forced this way because I have dogs behind me taking up the seat. And so the front edge of this poor chair is crushed down to where I'm practically just kneeling to stay in place. But I'm all about the comfort of our dogs. So anyway, you can, it's not uncommon for radio and even TV personalities, and now net podcasting personalities, to work up a stylized voice, if you will, that they use. It's all about modulating your voice. As you know, if you watch the show at all, I'm active in community theater, as well as I'm a praise and worship leader, and I'm in a band, and I've been in bands for years, and also community theater. So doing stuff in front of people where you have to modulate your voice. You have to learn how to project properly, how to keep your voice from sounding monotone and just boring people to death. Looking like you're just reading from a magazine. It can get very boring. But very quickly in those kinds of genre, those realms, you get very used to hearing yourself. And in fact, you may actually get to a point where you like to hear yourself. The beauty of getting used to hearing yourself in this kind of a situation is that when you hear what other people hear, you can begin to start tailoring the way you speak to people, and actually can make you a better speaker all around. And going way off our typical topic range, but finding, this is something that some folks may find useful just in everyday life, not just doing the kinds of things I do here. And please excuse me while I make some adjustments to the focus on our camera here. There are a lot of people that are scared to death of public speaking. Because it's just an uncomfortable situation. The thing is, you speak in public all the time. When you're talking around amongst friends, it may be a small group. It may be at a party where there's a large group that you're talking in front of people. So, and it's interesting to note that there are some people that groups enjoy listening to. They gravitate to when they speak, and others that they're turned off quickly. They're looking at their watches, looking for the next thing to move on to. And part of that is, not just whether or not that person is extroverted, but it's also a part of it is they may have a voice that is particularly attractive. Now, there's kind of a joke in the radio world that some people will say, yeah, I have a face for radio, but they, and of course you can't see their face in radio. Although now a lot of your radio stations also have a web presence. If you use iHeartRadio, they're on the web. And in fact, a lot of those radio personalities then have a live cam, a webcam in the studio where you can watch things. Number of your biggest radio hosts do that now. Sean Hannity, I think, does that. I know Rush Limbaugh does. I think Kim Commando, who's a tech type, does that. And so you actually do get to see them as well. But it's all about their voice. And some people have a natural voice that's good for this kind of thing, and some people have to develop that. But you will find that a lot of those people are fun to listen to in any venue because they're aware of what their voice is doing, and so they take advantage of, if they have a lower range, or they realize maybe they have a high squeaky voice that gets on everybody's nerves, and it's always up there. It's like, well, that gets annoying to people because you're like on this high register the whole time. So you can understand how listening to yourself and learning how to modulate your voice can help you in any number of just everyday situations, even just family gatherings. It's amazing if you pay attention to how you are coming across to people as far as tonality, strength of voice, projection, modulation, how much you can get, how much you influence conversations, and how you can be heard. And when it comes to doing like a netcast or stage or something like that, there's also this idea of mic, what we call mic technique. So not only learning how to project where you fully support your voice in speaking, and being aware of modulation, where you are dynamically in your presentation, how you're speaking, is also how you use the microphone. And that's the kind of thing that I can show you how to do. Now, I've got, for the studio here, over time, we've accumulated some very nice mics. The high LPR 40s are very nice. As a matter of fact, I had some people come into the studio earlier today for auditions for our next show. And one of them was aware of, he recognized the quality of the gear that we have. Of course, he walks in the door and was, his jaw kind of dropped. He's like, wow, this is a nice little setup. I explained to him I do music production and practice here, and I also do the podcasting. and he immediately recognized the quality of the microphones. Now, these are by no means the most expensive mics that you can get out there, but they're not the little handheld Shure mics that you can get at any music store either. Although, you can make those sound good too if you've got the other equipment that's nice to work with, a good soundboard with a good preamp, and I'm going way into the technical weeds for most folks. Oh, and John's in the chat room. Glad to see you on board there. I figure you'll probably be busy in and out dealing with all the things, all the responsibilities that go with taking care of a home for children, home for youths. So hopefully you'll get to hear and see enough of the program. And by all means, jump right in at any point if you have any questions or comments. And especially since you, John, in the chat room, have expressed a desire to maybe come on and be a guest host at one point. And so I'm trying to dispel some of the take away some of the mystery and fear that some people might have in maybe doing something like this. And as you see, it's if you have the right equipment, it makes it much easier to sound good, and you can sculpt the sound. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a little bit with. Let me show you an example. So if I want a little bit warmer sound out of the system, I can drop down the highs and make it a little bit lower. Get that kind of romantic sound, so it's a little bit more bottom end to it. So for those who followed WKR, used to watch the old WKRP in Cincinnati, there was that, you had Venus Flytrap. You had that low kind of voice and kind of romantic, and that's what you can do. Just simple adjustments to the system to give you a warmer sound. And so I can do that for each individual user. I've got good quality mics. I have a great response. Also have an Audio Technica 2035. Also sounds good. Again, it's you can make adjustments to fit the vocal style of the user, and then the rest of it is just simply understanding to keep it a decent distance from the microphone, because as I move away from the microphone, you can see I sound like I'm far away, and it's harder to hear me. Although this microphone does a very good job, and now I'm talking kind of across the top of it. But as I get closer, it does a good job picking up, and then I can get right on top of it and get really romantic. So it's all about microphone technique, and it's easier to do that, easier to manage it if you have decent equipment, which I do. Proud to say, not tremendously expensive, but worthwhile. And it also has dual purpose when I'm doing recording for various shows or demos or something like that. These are good quality mics to get recording. I'm the keyboard and also sometimes drummer for Living Water Sound, a contemporary Christian group here in Del Rio, Texas, and we're working on our next CD. And so what often happens is our leader, the Rich Morneau, who founded the group, we'll go into the studio and a professional studio and get a number of tracks laid down, but then we'll bring the raw tracks back, and then he'll do some things because he has a home studio, pretty much focused just on music recording, and he'll do his bits, and then he may shoot me the tracks, and then I'll add some keyboards. As you can see off to my left here, I have one of my practice keyboards here, and what you can't see below the desk here is I have a rack of equipment as well. And then this computer that I'm using here, I have some digital software by Cakewalk called Sonar that I use for the actual recording. It allows me to do a number of things. I can layer my tracks, add effects, etc., and then dump those out, send them to Rich so he can do what he needs to do with it. Mix it all down, that fun stuff. So, again, going way into the weeds about this, but just all that to say, I'm really bouncing the heck out of this monitor. All that to say, if you are interested, if you think you might like to try your hand at this, it's very easy to do. I will make it as easy as it possibly can be. We have had guest hosts here. Troy has been here several times. Another one of my students, Nick, has been here, and it was kind of a daunting thing, but he quickly absorbed into it because you just throw the headsets on and we're just having conversation. We're talking to you folks out there and to each other, and just kind of we imagine you're there. We imagine you are right here in the studio, and so we chat with you about the different topics. So, having said that, let's move along with the agenda. Don't have any movie reviews this week because we haven't seen any movies since Jupiter Ascending. But the next installment, let me pull up my movie list. One that was released in January but has not made it to theaters here. I may end up having to see it like on Vudu, Hulu, Voodoo, whatever. Some pay-per-view was a movie that involved scuba diving as Black Sea, which was on my 2015 movie list. So I'll be looking for that. Probably it'll be a pay-per-view kind of thing. But the next in the Divergent series, Insurgent is coming out March 20th, I think it is. So I'll be looking at trying to catch that movie. And let's see, somebody jumping into, oh great.
Text from Mirabella Maris. Want to read it or ignore it?
Windows Phone. Ignore it. I love that feature. It always trips. It's a Windows Phone, my Lumia 1020. I have that on. That's Cortana, for those who aren't aware. Cortana I have turned on all the time so that if I get texts or whatever, she gives me the opportunity to listen to them, and I can respond without hands on, which is great when you're driving. It's great if you're working on something. When we're working on sets for the previous show, Souvenir, I just had the phone sitting on the floor while I was assembling some set pieces and listening to music. And of course, Cortana, if you have her set to do so, will interrupt your music streaming or whatever you're doing and give you an opportunity to listen to and respond to messages, which is great. And it just was a large quantity of iPhone and Android users around me said, "Oh, I can't get mine to work like that." And now I was a good several feet away from my phone, and it heard me and understood me and responded and took down my text replies with no problem. Although, Cortana is not fail-proof. It's not without misinterpretation every so often. And my wife and I often get a good laugh over what Cortana thinks I said or thinks she said, and it's kind of funny. But that right now that's exclusive to Windows Phone, although rumors are that Microsoft is looking to export Cortana, make her available to the other platforms. Right now they've got her in a kind of a test mode on the Windows 10 Tech Preview. So if you happen to have that installed on a machine, you can actually experience Cortana. And I'm not really pleased with I hate Windows 10 anyway, but I'm not really pleased with her performance yet on Windows 10. Although it is kind of convenient that she does hear me, but it's not consistent. In other words, when she's got kind of the hands-free mode where she's always listening, which is fine on a PC because they're typically plugged in. There's no extra power requirements necessary to have basically the microphone in a passive listening mode, if you will, all the time. But on a phone, that can be pretty expensive. And I think only the newer devices that have some of the newer chips that allow for a extremely low power mode when listening passively for a call to Cortana. So, but like the 1020 is already almost 2 years old and doesn't have a newer system chip to be able to support that. But it's still the best phone out there, in my opinion. So anyway, be looking for Insurgent the sequel, one of, I guess, several sequels that will come out for Divergent. I think Divergent is somewhat analogous to the what's the Mockingbird one? What's I forget what it is. A series with Jennifer Lawrence in it that I have zero interest in. So anywho, that is. Get my screen back to the show notes. So no movie reviews. Tara and I had opportunity to just kind of take a rare night off and go to the Cripple Creek restaurant here in town, and it's our second time going there since they've reopened. And they really have done a great job of moving things back to more towards the way it was originally. It was a great restaurant originally, and then it fell into evil hands and was run into the ground. But now they're back, and they're back in a big way. And the food was great. I had the lobster. Tara had the filet mignon, and we both just gushed over the quality. So if you're in the Del Rio area, or just passing through and you're looking for a good place to eat, decent prices and good selection, just awesome service and awesome food, go to the Cripple Creek restaurant out on Highway 90 West. It's just before you get to the intersection where the new loop is at. So go check that out. I think you will not be disappointed. So all right, let's see. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we had somebody in the studio because we were doing auditions for the next Upstagers play, our first real musical for the season called Soup du Jour. And this is a revival of a show that we actually world premiered in 1998. And I think I showed this before. Tara and I were part of the original cast, and we're now in the scripts as the original cast doing the show, and I actually get royalties from the show because I wrote additional music and made some new arrangements for songs in the show. And the musical author, Greg Opelka, received them well. He liked them, and so he said, we need to include you in the royalties for the show. So I'm grateful for that, and so we're excited to be doing the show again. The challenges that we just held the auditions last weekend, and the challenges of doing shows here in a small community of Del Rio, Texas, is getting people to come out and actually audition. I really believe that there are a lot more talented people in this area than get involved. Unfortunately, because this town is so small, it's a border town, we just don't have a central information nexus, if you will, for people to communicate, to share things. You go to bigger towns, and there's at least a newspaper that almost everybody gets or has access to. We have a measly newspaper here called the Del Rio News Herald, and over the years they've had different management and different people working there, some more successful at improving readership and quality of the product than others, but it's just never been sadly, I've often been found to say, when somebody asks me, "Hey, do you get the Del Rio paper, or have you seen the paper?" And I just respond, "No, because I don't have a bird cage." So, but the problem is not very many people get it. So if you put something in the newspaper, you have a very, very small chance that the general population here in Del Rio is going to read it and be aware of what you're putting in there, i.e. auditions for a show or the actual opening of a show. Similarly, radio stations are dismal here. We have a really poor top 40 station. We have a really poor country station. We have basically a satellite run contemporary Christian station here, which is the one I'm more likely to listen to. But really, because of the easy access to satellite radio, that's what people, they either are listening to stuff streaming from their phones, or they're listening to satellite radio or CDs, or they're just not listening to local radio. And so again, there's not a central point by which that you can connect with the public out there. There's a number of different Facebook pages that some people access, but you can't really, you have to submit things to be shared there, so you're not likely to get something with high readership there as well. So sadly, it's tough to get the word out. You have generally more success. You have more success just using word of mouth to spread it around. So, having said all that, we had a very, very small turnout for auditions this past weekend, and presented a number of challenges to cast the show. The people who did show up, for the most part, were they were good. They were good, talented people having different strengths, but this show has three women, 3 men. And there's some degree of flexibility that you can play with the ages, but because it involves somebody who is the owner of a restaurant and whose father just passed away, that character has got to be pretty much an adult. You can't get away with a teenager there, but and then some of the, most of the characters are in that age range. But we had a particularly younger group of people auditioning, and that kind of forced a skewing of the casting to some degree, and presented a challenge because it's difficult to find people that work that click correctly together based on their age. For instance, I'm actually reprising my original role, and the person I would have cast in the character that eventually becomes the love interest is basically still in high school. And for little Del Rio audiences, that wouldn't work very well. And usually for younger actors, it's not an easy thing for them to put the character on. They can't make that. It's not as easy for them to make that separation. When I'm in a show, I become the character when I'm on the stage or when I'm rehearsing, and I drop the character when I'm not in, with the lights are off, when I'm not on the stage. And I can easily separate the two. I've been doing this for so long, it's just another character. And you just get comfortable with handling that. But not everybody can do that early on in their experience. So I was left with the choice of trying to recast that part. And fortunately, my wife agreed to reprise her role in that. But that allowed me to do some shifting the rest of the cast. But there was one critical part. It's the smallest part in the show, but it was a critical part. That we could not cast. We were beating the bushes, and finally we had 2 gentlemen actually say that they would audition. So they came out today, and they both did really well. I was very, very pleased because we've got a big summer musical, huge show. Nice Work If You Can Get It, which is it's all George Gershwin show music. Was done in 2012 as a new show, basically from 2012, that starred Matthew Broderick, and so with that in mind, I was pleased to see that we had 2 potentially strong guys to come out and be in that show, because we always have a hard time getting guys cast in shows. Similar to the difficulty in getting a host to help co-host this podcast, is just getting people that are willing, that are aware and will come out and do it. But these guys did a good job, but of course there was only the one part, and I had to select it. So I'm pleased to announce the official cast for the 2015 revival of the screwball comedy musical Soup du Jour. There'll be myself and my wife, Tara, and Scott Van Landingham, as well as Hannah Spencer, Courtney Jones, and now Tom Faison. Looking forward to really hitting the ground running. We're going to start rehearsals immediately tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and get the ball rolling because there's a lot of work to do in a short time because that's coming up. Again, if you're in the Del Rio area, that will be, the show opens April 10th and 11th and then runs that weekend and the following weekend, the 17th and 18th. So love for you to come out and check out the show. You will love it. It's fun music. It's non-offensive. There's no real language in it. So it's a good family kind of show. And we had a lot of fun when we did this originally. As a matter of fact, we actually took the show, we cut it down to 59 minutes, and we actually took it to contest and did pretty well with that. So it's going to be fun. I didn't direct it last time, but this time I'm directing. So while there were a number of things that really worked from the first time, I'll be looking to apply my own flair to directing the show this time around. So hopefully you guys can, if you're in the area, you can check that out. Okay, from the I gotta get me one of these department is this pretty cool thing, and I'm going to see if I can bring up the screen region here and theater mode. Here we go. This is pretty cool. All right, now this is like a big-time dramatization, but I mean, this is the actual deal. This car, and you'll notice the music and the theme is kind of playing with the James Bond kind of a feel. And that's because, if you remember, I forget what the movie was, it was a James Bond movie, where they had a Lotus that would go underwater. Well, this is built on a Lotus frame. And you'll notice it is a self-driving vehicle. Now, these days, that is not a big surprise anymore. Because, frankly, you got Google and I think Apple and a number of other companies are all working on this, most notably Google. Now this is, I gotta say, this is a really sharp looking car, and I guess because it's built on a Lotus frame, shouldn't surprise me. Now this is a totally electric vehicle, because obviously if you're going to have a vehicle that can go underwater, yes, that's right folks, it is a scuba car, SQUBA car. It can go underwater. You can't have something that's a combustible engine because it will obviously not work. But this is it's actually got 3 electric motors. One for driving them down the road like this, and then 2 for underwater because it's got main thrust propellers underneath in the back. And you'll look just ahead of the side view mirrors. There's the main thrust propellers. And there are the thrusters for attitudinal control. It's got 2 built-in scuba tanks, and it uses Scuba Pro regulators. They realize they're being pursued. So kick in the side thrusters and down they go. Now this thing can go to a depth of 33 feet. Now, what the description doesn't go into detail is exactly how it keeps that as a max depth. I understand the more modern method of literally flying through the water that some manufacturers of other underwater craft, personal subs, are using. But I'm thinking that there must be a maximum, I guess, buoyancy control that's built in by design that compensates for the weight of the vehicle, the batteries, etc., and of course the occupants. You can have this for a mere $2 million. But I mean, come on. You've got a vehicle that can drive itself, and you can scuba at any point that you want to. Floods wouldn't be an issue with this vehicle. You can go 75 miles an hour on land, and cruising on the surface, it can go 3 miles per hour, and then underwater, it can go 2 miles per hour. All it takes is when you get ready, just before you get in the water, is just use a lever to convert it to water mode. Because it's electric motors, it's zero emissions, so it's eco-friendly for those of you who are the tree hugger types. As you can see, it's got gauges for everything built in. And by the way, the autonomous driving is not limited to just the surface. It actually uses laser control. So if you are like fiddling with regulator or something like that, and you take your hands off the wheel, it's using laser control to make sure you don't go into obstacles. So it'll automatically it'll avoid obstacles. So I think that is just, that's amazing. That is absolutely remarkable. And it's resistant to both fresh and salt water. So you don't have to worry about, again, because of the components. Now that would be a concern, I would think, with the vehicle, because batteries can really get messed up in water, period, but certainly in some of them are more susceptible to saltwater issues than freshwater. But again, $2 million, and that is that Lotus-based car can be yours. It's actually created by a Swiss company called Rinspeed, as you saw early in the video. The flashing conveniently flashing their name throughout. So that's pretty cool. Very sharp car. I wouldn't mind driving that just down the road on not even underwater, but that's pretty neat. In other new toys, for those of you who are Scuba Pro, who are GoPro fans, if you got a GoPro, of course, you're probably no stranger to using the GoPro underwater. And there are a number of you can actually buy a mask that has a camera on it, and I think you can actually get a mask. I forget who makes it, that has a mount specifically for the GoPro, but SubGear, which is tied to Scuba Pro, they actually have, let me go screen region here, they actually have now a quasi-universal, they call it universal, but it can't be totally universal, but a mount that will go, it fits, it says here, it fits almost every double lens mask on the market. Although I can imagine there's probably a number that it won't fit. But as you can see here how it works, it just simply mounts above the nose bridge. Looks like it kind of works similarly to how a webcam might work connecting to your laptop, or if you don't have a laptop that has webcam built in, or to your monitor, your PC, clips on there, and then you can mount your GoPro on there. That's pretty cool. And convenience of that is, of course, somewhat hands-free operation. Obviously, you've got to activate its recording and that kind of thing. So having it right on top of your mask could introduce a little bit of a challenge to paying attention to what you're doing. If you're up there trying to fumble with that and you maybe push too hard, stress the the mount or something and let water into your mask unintentionally. Or another challenge that you might have is because it's sticking up. I wonder if I can find a picture with it mounted. Actually, a GoPro mounted on. Oh, I got a new follower on Twitter. Cool. I'm very prolific on Twitter, and you'll see my Twitter handle on one of the screens here, and I'll be reciting it to you later. Let me see if I can find this SubGear GoPro mount. See if there's images. That would be pretty cool. Is this a good one? Yeah. Go see what kind of picture. Oh, of course you can't. It's not very good. You know, when you use the images feature, often it's difficult to find a picture that's of sufficient size and resolution to let you see what you need to see. That's not. I want one with it mounted on there. That's what I want. I'm shocked. I guess we'll use that anyway. So, image match. Let's try that. There is only one size. One size fits all. So anyway, so you can see it mounted there. So that really sticks up way over your head. I'm assuming that would be the case for the GoPro 3, for example, because I think the 4 might be a little bit smaller. I could be wrong. And as light as it is, I can imagine that kind of feeling funny on my face with that extra weight there. But the concern I would have with this, although it's a really cool invention that definitely has a niche that it's filling, the issue I would have is it'd be easy to bump or snag that on something and have your mask get ripped right off. I could imagine be cruising along and somebody diving with me, whether it's a dive buddy or if I'm in a group. If I'm in a dive group, as typically happens with going on a dive trip, is you're kind of stuck. Is this another picture? Here we go. You might get in close quarters with somebody who's less experienced, let's say less experienced than you, and they cruise, and that's happened to me many of times where I'm cruising along and somebody wasn't paying attention and they descend on top of me. So I can imagine them accidentally snagging this because they didn't secure their alternate regulator, and so the hose is hanging down and it wraps itself around that and pulls my mask off, and so being able to not panic and recover my mask and clear it and all that fun stuff would of course ensue. So I can imagine some potential hazards with any of these masks that allow you to affix a camera or similar device, an overhead light, if you will, to this. So use it at your own risk. But these are running for about $14, which actually is pretty good for a mount specifically designed for the GoPro. I've looked at mounts for various pieces of equipment for the GoPro at Walmart, and some of those things are not cheap. I found a GoPro while diving and was able to rescue it, get it back up to where it works. I've got a much better camera for underwater photography and videography, and so the GoPro I need to probably just keep it charged to make sure it works. But I don't see myself using it a lot because it'll have its opportunities. But when I've got the Sea Life DC 1400 Pro Duo, and it's just an awesome camera and just puts the GoPro to shame. But I found it and it's free, and so got it working. So looking at mounts like that might be an opportunity if I want to go on a dive and want to go hands-free. Although I gotta say, with the Duo, I've got the awesome strobe and the awesome video light. And quite often when I'm diving with, even on a night dive, if I'm diving with that thing, if I'm running the camera, I've got my BC light. It's always attached. I'm slinging the handheld, the pistol grip light, because this thing, the light on the Pro Duo, the DC 1400, is it's just far and away awesome light. And it's LED, so it doesn't go through battery very quickly. But then neither does my pistol grip one. And again, I can't stress enough how you're just always better off going with the LED lights than using the old halogen or other types of lights. So okay, so one last thing before we I'm going to jump on the little soapbox, hence the title of the episode this week. One last thing. I've been reading a lot of different dive accident stories that one of the common themes that I seem to see is people diving outside their limits. It's probably fair to say that if you're a scuba diver, you are a little bit, at least, of a thrill seeker, because you're getting into an activity, a hobby, that only about 1% or so of the world actually engages in, and you're actually doing what is potentially a dangerous activity. Scuba diving, we are not native. We're not native to the water, so obviously we've got to pack our air. We've got to pack a number of things with us so that we can actually spend that time underwater. And so you're kind of you're not tempting fate. You're not challenging death, but you are taking a certain amount of calculated risk in diving. You get the training, you learn how to use the gear, and you get the proper gear and to enjoy this activity. But it's kind of a thrill-seeking thing to some extent, and but for some reason, a lot of the accidents that you see reported in diving, the diving community, are from people who push themselves past their limits, or they really weren't aware of their limits. And these kinds of things happen to newer divers as well as divers who've been diving for years. In fact, I would almost argue, and I don't have statistics to back me up, but just based on what I've read, I would venture to say that it can be potentially as dangerous as far as pushing the limits as dangerous for newbie divers as for divers who have thousands of hours under their belt, because you can reach a point of complacency. And I've talked to a number of divers who make me nervous because they brag about, I do double tanks, and I've got over 900 log dives, and there's just nothing. I've been all over the world. There's nothing I haven't seen that even phases me. And I'd much rather dive by myself, and I don't bring any extra gear. I know what I'm doing. I pay attention, and just have a good time. Unfortunately, some of those people can be the ones who totally blow off some of the more basic skills. I stress all the time, the skills you learn in the course are skills you should practice on a regular basis. Pick especially the ones that you are the least comfortable with after certification. You're going to be able to demonstrate, or you should be expected to demonstrate a comfortable execution of the skills before you get certified. But by no means should anybody expect of you, or you yourself, that you are a complete master of all those skills. You've done them cleanly enough that the instructor feels that you now know how to do that. At that point, it's your responsibility to keep practicing those skills so that they become second nature to you. Now, there's a saying that we have in in the instructor world not necessarily for scuba diving, but I've taught I teach Lean Six Sigma stuff, and I also have taught some business analysis software for years with just many people. And there's a saying that goes, nothing makes you an expert better than actually being made to teach something. Because if you are going to show somebody else how to do something, you're at least going to know, even if you don't know everything about whatever the topic is, you're going to know more than the people that you're teaching, generally speaking. And so, but the more you do it, you really do know more. And here's the interesting thing. The more you're teaching other people to do it, it becomes more automatic to you, and you don't even think about how to do those things that you're showing other people to do because you've done it so many times in repetition to show them. Repetition is the heart of learning. And so because I'm an instructor, I teach all of these skill sets many times each year. But I still don't neglect practicing them myself. In fact, there's some that I use on a regular basis, even though in a perfect world, in perfect diving, you would not need to do them, like the mask clearing. Very often, a number of things can impact the fitting of the mask, or maybe I didn't use anti-fog well enough, and so I'm in the middle of a dive, and I'm finding it difficult to see. Well, what do I do about that? Well, I don't want to try to continue the dive not being able to see, and I don't want to end my dive early. Oh, guess what? I can let water in the mask, and I can use my mask clearing skills to clear the water out, because the water has been used to wipe the condensation off, and now I can see and enjoy the rest of my dive. I might be diving along, especially in a lake like Amistad, where there's a lot of fishing. I may be cruising along and inadvertently snag close to a submerged tree that has a lot of fishing line snagged in it from people cutting loose their line when they get snagged on it. And it may force me to remove my regulator and switch to an alternate so I can get the fishing line off or whatever. So there's a number of opportunities that I've run into to outside of the instructor mode to practice those skills. And then there are other skills that I know I don't get an opportunity to. They may be things I don't teach, but it's with gear that I have that I need to practice things regularly. So an example would be, I've got Tara and I both have a submersible systems spare air. And I don't want to hear the comments about, oh, well, that's that's just dangerous. And no, it's not. It's an awesome device. It's a great self-contained bailout bottle, and if you use it for such. But like any other piece of gear, any other skill, you've got to practice using it. And so I intentionally take it on dives with me. I definitely take it if I'm going on a self-assisted dive. But I bring it along, and I practice using it. I'll even practice a emergency situation at maximum depth. And so I'll practice, I'll simulate that I've had a catastrophic failure with my primary system, and I'm having to go straight to the surface on just the spare air. Now, obviously, even though I'm a very relaxed diver and I don't go through the air very fast, a number of things can negatively impact your calm. And there, obviously, something like a catastrophic failure system can raise your metabolism and raise your aerobic tempo to the point that you are going to go burn through your air no matter how much you try to keep relaxed. And so you've got to know that something like a 3 cubic foot spare air is going to get you to the surface from 100 feet. Well, I can say with absolute confidence that I can get to the surface comfortably with my spare air. If I'm very calm, I can breathe very relaxed, and I can make it all the way to the surface with the spare air, breathing constantly the whole time. I can also do staged controlled emergency swimming ascents, where I literally practice the CISA that we teach in the class, which is normally something you do at 30 feet or shallower. But you can, if you have the availability of something like a spare air, you can do a staged CISA. So I can, if I have to switch to the spare air, okay, I take my breath and I get in the Superman pose and I do the ah sound with the spare air in my mouth. I'm doing the ah sound as far as I can go. And then I take another breath or two. And then I continue doing the CISA. And I take another breath or two. And I continue doing the CISA. And I've even actually been able to do that from 100 feet, doing the controlled CISA, and been able to do a safety stop. Again, you stay relaxed. You keep control. You keep your wits about you. But I've been able to actually do a normal 3-minute safety stop using just the spare air coming from 100 feet. And then I'm sucking the last bit of air out of it as I come to the surface, but it works. And that's the 3 cubic foot one. They make different sizes. They make smaller ones. I don't recommend the smaller ones because those are good for cleaning underneath your boat or checking the prop or something. Or finding something you just dropped over the side of your boat and it's shallow. But the 3 cubic foot one is very good if you maintain it, and it can save your life. But I practice those skills. But what I often see in a lot of these, commonly in these reports, is somebody has gone beyond their limits. Now, believe it or not, one of the greatest additions to the dive community, to dive technology, is a contributor to the commonality of people pushing their limits, and that's the dive computer. Now, Patty now kind of focuses more on teaching diving with the computer as opposed to diving with the old slate tables that we have. I still teach the tables. I think they're important. I think it's important to keep up with them. And if you log your dives, which you should, you're at least going to keep a little bit of practice of using your tables. It just helps keep you honest. And if you end up being in a situation where all you have that you can dive with is BC regulator and old analog gauges, a regular analog pressure gauge and an analog depth gauge, and you've got a timer, a watch, in your dive tables, you can knock out a dive because you can follow the tables. But what computers have done is automated that process, and they've made it easier for people to push their limits. Because what a lot of people don't understand is not all dive computers are alike. Some are designed with algorithms that figure the 12 different theoretical dive tissues and how diving in compressed air affects those tissues, because without going into a lot of the physics of diving, what scientists discovered is that different tissues in the body become saturated with nitrogen and other inert gases that you're breathing faster than other types of tissues, and they off gas or release that compressed gas at different rates than other types of tissues in your body. And so that's how the dive tables have been slowly updated over the years, is to reflect what science understands about the different tissue loading rates, different gas loading rates into various different types of tissues. So having said that, the dive computers are designed to calculate and recalculate this on the fly, similar to how a GPS system, whether it's a dedicated like a TomTom or on your smartphone, you'll be cruising along. You're following directions that it's giving you, and then you accidentally take a turn that you weren't supposed to turn, either because it was a poor map design that it was downloaded on your device, or you just weren't paying attention and you missed a critical turn. Well, a lot of these GPS systems will recognize that you've changed your direction, you've changed your profile, and so they'll say, "Oh, I'm recalculating your path." And or reevaluating whatever they're going to use, whatever the phrase they're going to use. And then it shows you a new path based on, and it shows you now how much time it's going to take you, how much gas you're going to have left, etc. based on those changes. Well, dive computers do the same thing. They take the basic tables and then they are automatically sensing where you are in the water column, and then they're making adjustments to how much tissue loading should be going. They theoretically is going on in your body at that point. And so some computers are very conservative in those algorithms, meaning that they're calculating things for on the high side. So as if your saturation is going faster, so that you would be less likely if you actually pushed the dive computer to the limit, because the dive computers, among the many features that they have, is they're showing you your depth and they're showing you a countdown of number of minutes that you could spend at that depth. If you go deeper, it's going to eat up that number faster, and so you'll see the number click down a lot faster before wherever you settle. Then it's going to go to a normal steady 1 second at a time speed rate. But if you come up shallower, you'll find that it adds time, meaning you get to spend more time down, because you're coming up shallower, and some of the gas that you've already saturated yourself with now feels less pressure and is now releasing. That gas in your tissues is actually reaching. It's seeking equilibrium with the surrounding pressure. So whatever depth you go, you're only going to accumulate into your tissues that which is equal with the pressure around you. So if you go deeper, then more is going to be pressed into your tissues until it reaches equilibrium with the pressure outside of you. If you come up shallower, it's going to release to come into balance with, reach a saturation level that is in equilibrium to that which is around you. So some computers calculate this very conservatively, meaning they let you spend more time down because they're not calculating the tissue loading as quickly as other computers. Some computers are very relaxed, very liberal in their algorithms, and so what they're doing is well, let me reverse this. The conservative ones are actually protecting you more because they're giving you a bigger buffer. The liberal ones are basically letting you go right to the bloody edge of the limitation. And then there are others that allow you to choose from an average to a conservative to a liberal calculation. So you can actually choose which one. But most people don't realize what their gear's doing. And it's because of this why when we're teaching in a class and we're talking about computers, never, if your computer fails, you abort the dive. You don't rely on your buddy's computer, because the tissue loading that you've been working at up to the point where your computer failed is not the tissue loading being calculated, necessarily the tissue loading being calculated by the dive computer your dive buddy is using. So you don't just say, okay, well, let me just look at your gauge, because it's not the same thing. Your profile is what's the word I'm looking for? Your profile is unique to you, and you're different. When Tara and I go diving, I can guarantee you she's almost always going to be higher in the water column than I am. I'm going to be at a certain level, and I can usually expect to see her above and slightly behind me, because she's wanting to be able to look down and see that I'm there, and be an easy location. I can easily be located by her. Of course, this presents a challenge for me, because then I'm looking over my shoulder, up and all over, trying to see her, and you have plenty of blind spots as a diver. So, but her profile would be showing her not saturating as much compressed gas as I am, because I'm a little deeper. Even 1 foot difference in depth makes all the difference. And let's say you're a diver that has still working on the buoyancy control thing, so you're kind of up and down a little bit with, like Otis Elevator Company. You're constantly putting air in and letting air out of your BC. So your profile is going to be different from every other diver out there, which is why you don't want to ever fool yourself into thinking you can share their computer. If your computer dies, you call the dive. You just say, I'm having problems with my computer, if it's a wristwatch, or point to your console, and communicate that we need to abort the dive and go up. But what often happens is people don't understand, even if they're not pushing themselves ridiculously outside their limits, like you've just gotten basic certification, which sets you up for diving to 60 feet, and you say, oh, there's some cool stuff down at 80 feet. Not a good idea to go down that deep. But some people will do that. And you're taking a huge risk when you push yourself past those limits. Don't allow peer pressure or what you perceive to be as a unique once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see or do something that that you know is beyond what you've been trained for and what you have the equipment and skill set to use that equipment for. So, like I said, if you've got a dive computer, look up whether or not it's conservative. You can usually find that with the manufacturer, or you can certainly do internet searches for, a good way to ask it, are the algorithms for this model computer conservative? And then usually you'll see some links to websites that say that tell you exactly what's going on with that piece of gear, that dive computer. And then no matter what, just simply don't push yourself beyond what your limits are. And oh, by the way, health plays a big factor in that. If you're not in decent shape, you may want to think about getting into shape. I've seen a lot of people, especially foreigners. It seems to be more foreigners. I say somebody that's not United States. A lot of Europeans, as a matter of fact, who are still heavy smokers. You are setting yourself up for a number of worlds of hurt if you scuba dive as a smoker. You have decreased lung capacity anyway. Your lung efficiency is way down. So you're going to definitely go through your air faster than you would if you weren't smoking. Then there's also the challenges of what's happening to your blood vessels. Let's say you had to get that last cigarette in before you went on a dive. Well, you've created a number of things going on in your body because of the nicotine and what it does, that now you're going to be breathing on compressed air, which now creates another cascade of interesting challenges that could prove injurious, if not fatal. So I can't stress enough to keep within your limits. So, all right, now on to my rant today, and hence the title of the episode, which is Neutral Corners. If you've been living under a rock, you may not be aware of the fact that the FCC, in secret, passed rules to turn the internet into a utility. And they call it, and they use this fake terminology that's been bandied about for years called net neutrality. Of course, the lame excuse they're giving is that they're wanting to maintain freedom within the internet. Thing is, the internet got where it's at without a bunch of government regulation. Now, that doesn't mean that the government doesn't have regulations that do affect the internet, because they can regulate businesses. There's a number of things that they regulate as far as businesses. And you do pay, I think as part of your phone bill, an internet tax, believe it or not. And that's for the purpose of getting internet service out to the rural areas, I think is largely the excuse there. But the facade that pro-net neutrality people have put on this to get it passed is that it's meant to keep networks from blocking traffic or throttling traffic based on who's providing it, who's using it. The thing is, that already goes on, and it's not a malicious effort. I mean, the list of issues that I have with the net neutrality just go on and on. But I'm going to share just a few of those. First of all, the government controlling, and there are people who tried the lame excuse, well, it's not really the government controlling. Nonsense. Like many other agencies, they are a liaison extension of Congress. The FCC is an appointed body, and it can currently has 3 Democrats and two Republicans on it, and the vote went 3-2, so it was clearly on party lines. But the bottom line is, it's government control. It is socialism. It's socializing the internet by telling you that it is a utility, which it's not, but because they've inflicted Title II rules on it, it now becomes a utility. This now means the government can have a lot more control over what's going on with it. In its most basic form, net neutrality was a solution in search of a problem. The internet is not broken. None of the things that net neutrality has been bragged about as supposedly addressing has occurred. Now, there were people who would try to cite anecdotal evidence that to the contrary, but they're not telling you the full truth of any of those evidence, like Comcast and Netflix, etc. The truth is, nothing that the net neutrality is meant to supposedly, allegedly fix has ever happened. And there's enough oversight in other areas that would prevent that from happening, because free market works, the public opinion works, the voice of the customer actually works. And then also, networks will be prohibited from managing their traffic through their infrastructure as they see fit to make better experience for all customers. Now, what that means is you've got to understand something. The wires, the transmitters, or transceivers, the switches, the routers, the storage, the data storage, all of that cost those networks money to deploy, to purchase the materials, the items, assemble, install, deploy out across the nation. Those things didn't happen for free, and they weren't your tax. In most cases, they weren't your tax dollars going for that. That was you deciding that a company had a product or service that you felt was worth you giving them voluntarily your money for. And so that money is then used to pay all of their bills, as well as reinvestment, capitalizing new challenges, new aspects, new things that you can use for the internet. Excuse me. But the thing is, with government controlling it, saying Comcast or whoever, you cannot treat data support, supply, access to this company differently than you do for this person. But the thing is, you go to you don't pay the same thing going to the Ritz-Carlton as you do to Motel 6. But you're the same customer, and they're just hotels. There's no difference in their hotels, right? And yet somehow they want you to think that it's okay to say you can't throttle service, you can't throttle the pricing. You will charge the same thing to everybody to access Motel 6 or the Ritz-Carlton. The bottom line is, when you're using the internet, you as a customer are choosing what you're going to be accessing, what you're going to be uploading and downloading. It ain't no thing to send and receive email. That's virtually no traffic. It ain't no thing to send other kinds of messages or look at a regular website. Now, if you're watching Netflix streaming over, or Vudu, or you're going to YouTube and watching stuff, that's a huge bandwidth hog. And oh, by the way, maybe performance for you in your neighborhood is great because there's not a lot of people using they're not trunked into the same area that you are. But where, let's say, Netflix servers are being accessed, that internet service provider may be very limited in what number of nodes and ways to handle the traffic. And so suddenly they see everybody from Texas is watching the latest. They're binging on House of Cards, and it's choking at that point. It may be fine here, but it's choking at the ISP that's providing them. So what that company would want to do then is so you're not saying you're watching buffering, because it's waiting for the next packets of information to come through. They may decide to work out a deal where Netflix or YouTube or whoever pays additional money that to get priority over other traffic. Now, this does a couple of things. If they decide to do this, that means that through their infrastructure, that Netflix can pay to have better priority of data coming through. Now, that means emails may get slowed down, or some other thing that you're doing on the internet may get slowed down, but you're getting the Netflix performance that you expected, or Vudu, or whatever you're watching. So it's important that companies be able to charge what they need to from companies and people who are willing to pay more, and then be able to take that money to reinvest it in infrastructure so that doesn't become a problem later, that it doesn't grow into a bigger issue later. But no, the government feels that all data is exactly the same, and it's not, and it's never been treated the same. It's never been treated the same. Let's see. Companies like Netflix, Facebook, and Google owe a large part of their huge success to the fact that they've been able to rely on the infrastructure that's paid for by the providers. And those companies are already skewing. Those companies, Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, they've already been skewing traffic in their favor. Netflix and YouTube account for approximately half of downstream traffic. The internet is not an entitlement. It's that simple. I don't care how important it is to you. The internet is not a utility, and it's not an entitlement. There's nothing in the Constitution, there's nothing in our Declaration of Independence that even hints that something like the internet is something you have an inalienable right to. You don't. It is a product or service that has been created and provided by company X, AT&T, Google, YouTube, Netflix, whoever. It's a product or service that they produce that you find valuable enough to pay to access. So think of it this way, like Netflix. Not only are you paying your service provider for your access and whatever speed you've chosen amongst their tier options, you are paying Netflix or Vudu, whoever, a monthly fee just to have access to their library. Now, with the net neutrality, unfortunately, none of the companies can make any kind of negotiations to favor or otherwise prioritize companies not like Netflix. They'll say that it protects you, but no, all it does, it means that there's a greater opportunity that you're going to be seeing a lot of buffering going on with high volume content, that media that you're trying to watch. And you're not entitled to any of it. There is no preordained right to the internets. And it's not free. It costs money to build what you see that allows the internet service to be accessed by you, for you to get it in your home or on your phone. It costs money to build all that out, maintain it, and expand it. It's not free. And so I get angry when I see some of these really, really stupid people out there who insist that the internet, I like net neutrality because I want the free internet. No. It's never been free. You've always had to pay for it. And you're going to have to pay more. Net neutrality is basically socialism. It's another Obamacare thing. It's socialism. It's government taking control of it, and it is about control and taxes. They want to get more money. This is their way to get more money out of it, but it's also their way to get control of it. If you can tax it, you can control it. It's that basic, simple thing. I will refer you to back when the speed limits were 55. Now, we have an interstate highway system, but guess who actually maintains those highways? That's the states. And you can see it. You can see it happen. As you go from state to state, very often you will see the road changes. Whereas one state may have a beautification process of their highways, and they've resurfaced everything, and it's got a different kind of material that allows your vehicle to have better traction in bad weather. But then you cross the state line and you see that it's like really, really rickety, like potholes or cracks in it, and all they've been doing is swirling the little bits of tar on there and the cracks. One state may have really good berm or side of the road. Others won't have anything. The states actually control their part of the interstate, but a lot of states didn't want to drop the speed limit back when it was 70 or 75 before. They didn't want to drop their speed limits. The government, of course, has been accumulating taxes for the roads. And so the government told the states, fine, you can choose not to set your speed limit to 55, but you are also not going to take advantage of the monies that we have for highways. Oh, okay, we're sorry. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and drop the speed limits to 55. Okay, we'll give you your money. So they had them by the short hairs. So don't even believe for a second that same kind of thing is not going to happen with the internet. The FCC can inflict as many regulations as they want. The government can tax it and they will be able to control it. It's about control. Yeah, exactly. Just covered the taxes part. And the thing is, now that the government is saying, yes, we're going to control it, we're going to manage it, that means they have to have people, they have to have bodies to manage it. And they're going to have they're going to have some sort of an agency that's going to be hiring people just to manage all the different things about the internet. And they'll be looking at new ways, now based under these rules, they'll be looking at new ways to engage promote the general welfare of it. And really, it's just going to translate to more taxes. Well, in order to do these things, in order to pay these people, in order to put this infrastructure in place that makes sure that this startup isn't taking advantage of weak numbers, of people able to watch them and try to screw out over the customers. So they can very easily take, and will, I can guarantee you, it's going to happen. They're going to take more control. The internet has been a success because it's been allowed largely to function. It's been allowed to be. It's just been allowed to function the way it needed to function, the way people were using it. It's been able to morph as it goes along into something that is very responsive to the average consumer. But it's never been neutral. It's never, ever been neutral. And data that moves across, contrary to net neutrality rules, traffic is not equal. And data has never been equal. And it should never be treated as such, as a matter of fact. For instance, I think some traffic that should be considered more important would be, let's say, 911 emergency calls over voice over IP, VoIP. That means they're not using traditional phone lines the way you would pick up the handset and talk. It's data packets traveling over voice over IP, or the same thing that the internet uses. You'd want that traffic to have priority. You'd want ISPs to recognize how important it is for that to have priority. So there's traffic that is more important by default, like 911 traffic, and then there's traffic that's more important simply because of demand by the users, Netflix. So why would that not be handled by the private sector, by free market? Why would you not want that handled by the companies that actually manage the equipment? It's not the government's place to step in and mess with it. So now the FCC can essentially decide to set rates for access, because it's all, in order to be net neutral, they can set rates or set limits, at least. And they can also set requirements for access, for use, and control of infrastructure. They could easily either tell a company you can't use this type of equipment, or tell a company, in order for you to get to move forward, for you not to violate any of these regulations, you must change or upgrade your equipment to something. So what if they can't? What if they can't afford to? Because, oh, by the way, the FCC is saying you need to change this part of your network. The hardware is not up to standards of net neutrality. But then the FCC then has already told them you can't charge more to Netflix or other high bandwidth users to recoup the costs and be able to invest in the said upgrades. So basically then they're left with very few choices, and those choices usually amount to they've got to go out of business. So this is a stupid idea. Net neutrality is not net neutrality. It's already picking winners. It's already picking winners and losers. I wonder if anybody out there remembers the fairness doctrine. And don't think that has completely gone away. I'm absolutely convinced that a large part of this effort is a backdoor way to engage that. The government tried to engage the fairness doctrine because they felt that in radio land, that conservative shows programming was just totally eating the lunch of liberal programming, and that's pretty much true. You had big names like Laura Ingraham and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Dana Lash, a number of people out there who've got huge followings that have great radio followership, and but Air America, almost every liberal programming that has tried to get off the ground has died dismally. And so, but of course, liberal media absolutely owns the television realm. But the government tried to instigate the fairness doctrine, which basically said you have to give equal programming, fair. You have to basically be programming neutral. Sounds familiar. Meaning, if you have conservative shows, you must give equal time to liberal shows. And so this is so to keeps everything fair and equal and neutral, ultimately from the audience perspective. But the truth is, it was a form of censorship, and it was a form of forced propaganda. So here we are now. The FCC is taking control of the internet. How would you not think that this is another way for the government to engage clandestinely the fairness doctrine? This really makes me believe that this has been all along about two things from the government standpoint. It's been about control and taxation, getting more revenue. You may or may not be aware that the government has tried to go after political bloggers or news bloggers, telling them you don't qualify as press, and so if you've broken a story that is prejudicial prejudicial against our people in our party, our important people. We're going to sue you to give up who gave you that information, and you're not protected by various rules around the free press, protecting your sources, etc. Of course, that failed horribly, but I can almost guarantee it. If this keeps going on, if these rules aren't repealed, that eventually you will see that the government starts to exercise, engage some various rules that allow them to engage a form of the fairness doctrine. Now, what that means is that puts a kind of a chilling effect on ISPs, on other networks, and on individuals who are activists in nature and or ISPs that are carrying them. They may be hosting them. And so they're going to be scrutinized and otherwise taxed or limited. There's a number of ways that they control it, and I can guarantee you that's going to be tried. You're going to hear that brought up, and it's all going to be in your best interests to do that. Now that means that, let's say, when a lot of times on this show, I'm streaming out to you videos of our diving. Well, that uses a lot of bandwidth. And oh, by the way, if I've got two choices, I'm either streaming it directly from my computers here, so I'm pumping out that data to you, or it might be something that I'm accessing through YouTube. And so I'm actually pulling that traffic down to me downstream, and it's processing through this software, and I'm pushing it back out to you. So I'm actually doubling the traffic coming in and going out. And let's say that you want unfettered access to it. You want to watch the video cleanly. Well, it could potentially be, depending on who else is a player, you could find that every time you watch any of that stuff, it's buffering because the Time Warner is not, for instance, not allowed to charge more for me to be able to do this if they feel that the bandwidth I'm using is considerable. So I firmly believe that we're going to see some form of fairness doctrine and censorship going on. And really, there's nothing to stop anybody in power. I don't care whether it's Democrat or liberal or conservative in control. Either of them having that kind of power just angers me. And yet there's so many ignorant people that supported net neutrality because they don't understand what's really going on. They don't understand what this is all about. All they hear is it's keeping the free internet free, and it's not. Because it's not the free internet. It does cost, and it worked fine. None of the issues that people will try to tell you this is protecting against have happened. It just happened. It just hasn't. It's a myth. So it's going to be very disappointing and interesting to see what's going on now with internet service. I can almost guarantee you can in the next few years you're going to see buffering because there's no monetary gain. There's no monetary impetus for companies to move forward because they get nothing for it. It's so anti-capitalist. This whole thing is anti-capitalist. It punishes entrepreneurism. It punishes companies' ability and desire to make more money so that they can hire more people to do more things, to provide more products and services, and ultimately to make profit. Why else do you have a business? Really, why do you have business exists for one reason and one reason only: to make money for the owner, the operator, the shareholders. That's the only reason it exists. There's no reason for somebody to go into the hard work of creating a business or growing a business other than to make money. That's it. That's all there is. for government to insert some sort of a social well-being onto a capitalistic endeavor is beyond profane to me. I should be able to create a business the way I want it, function the way I want it, charge what I feel I can expect from customers for a product or service that they find useful. You know, I've said many, many times, I will continue to say it, a product or service is worth no less than you are willing to sell it for, and worth no more than your customer is willing to pay for it. When those two amounts meet, you have a transaction, and you have a company that is making money that they feel it's worth and for the product, and you have a customer that's satisfied with the product that they have, and they've perceived the value as being equal to what they paid for it. But now what we're doing with the government is we're stifling all of that. We're making sure that is going to continue to be ratcheted down, and there will be limitations that will begin to hobble successful growth. And just absolutely angers me. All right, so call your congressman, try to get their attention, tell them to do whatever they can to get these FCC rules repealed. I really believe that we're not going to get anything done of any usefulness until we have a different president on board. Because all of the socialism that's going on, all of the forcing you to buy something that you shouldn't have to be forced to buy, the taking control of healthcare, the taking control of the internet would not be happening except for socialism at the head. So that's my soapbox for tonight. So take that with a grain of salt and do with it what you will. As we are winding down here, we'll jump into the administrivia. So our next Dive Club meeting, as I've said before, because we'll be working on Soup du Jour, will not be until May. So that'll be May 21st at 7 p.m. out at Rudy's Restaurant. We had to do a quick shopping jaunt out to Walmart, which is just down the block from Rudy's, and I tell you, for some reason today didn't have things fired up, and so normally when I go to Walmart, I can smell the barbecue at Rudy's, and it just really, even if I've just eaten, I feel hungry by smelling their stuff because their food is just so great. And I do have my classes, dive classes listed for this year for 2015. So here they are: April 23rd through the 26th, May 28th through the 31st, June 25th through the 28th, July 23rd through the 26th, August 27th through the 30th, and September 24th through the 28th. Now, these are all basic classes, and although I can teach, any number of the other more advanced classes if I have sufficient students. But if you want to sign up for these, you can sign up as early as you want, but make sure you sign up no later than the first week of the month of that class. So if you're going to attend the April class, make sure you sign up the first week, no later than the first week of April, so I can get your student materials to you, and you can get your nose into the binder there and start studying. And I'll be plugging this in till we actually open the show. The Upstagers present the 2015 revival of Soup du Jour, starring yours truly and his lovely producer and wife, Tara. Opens April 10th and 11th and closes the following weekend, 17th and 18th. If you're in the Del Rio area, we encourage you to check out the show. It is fun. It's a hilarious show. And it's actually been made better when we originally did it. They've actually added some things, and as we were kind of doing the auditions, Tara and I were noticing a number of things. We're like, whoa, that was new from last time. We always volunteer at a Pet's Wish every week, and they really need a lot of help, especially now that it's cold out there. Poor animals, I feel so bad for them because they end up having to stay inside a lot because it's been so ridiculously cold here in Del Rio lately, and so they don't get outside as much because there's a little bit of cover out there, and it's just basically pens, but it lets them get out there and do their business. But if they don't, especially if they don't get out, then some of them they're gonna mess in their cages because they can only hold it so long. And so clean the cages and all that fun stuff. Feeding, watering the animals. It's a daily chore, daily challenge. So they're constantly needing volunteers and also constantly needing money to pay for vet bills, which are exorbitant, which are high, and for supplies, food, medications, cleaning supplies, repair of equipment, etc. So they could always use money. And if you happen to be diving right about now, this time of the year, and you need to air fill, just go check out Mike McCarson out at our Broke Mill RV Park out on Highway 90 West. Just give him a call at 830-719-2935 to let him know you're coming. If you'd like to keep in touch with us, please check out our Dive Club webpage. It's delriodiveclub.com. How easy is that, right? And then also, if you want to be more in tune with what's going on, we are very active on Facebook. So just look for Del Rio Dive Club there as well. And so that's the more timely, pertinent items that we'll put on there. Like if we're planning a dive out at the lake, we'll post that out there, kind of thing. And also, we'll often upload pictures and videos from dive trips, etc. So, and then you can also send us messages via Skype. Just send it to TGWD, which stands for Two Guys Who Dive. How about that? Now, if you'd like to converse with me, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm very prolific. If you follow me, unless you're a real dweeb, I will follow you back. Just look for Robert CFP. Or you can send me an email, robert.wade@setifox.net. Both of that's just right there below me. Okay? And I'll respond to you. I don't have somebody who reads my mail for me. I will do and respond directly. But don't be a knob. Don't be a knob about it. If you've got some criticism, I'll take criticism. But don't be silly about it. But if you've got suggestions, ideas for the show, or you'd like to express interest in maybe co-hosting the show, please send me an email. I'm anxious to hear from you. That pretty much finishes out what we've got. I didn't see any more comments from John, so he was probably pretty busy out there. So, glad you were able to jump in, though, and hopefully you found something enjoyable in the show. Same to you folks out there. And as we get closer to the showtime for Soup du Jour, at some point I'll probably be letting you know that we won't have a show. For sure, we won't have it the weekend of the 11th or the 18th because I'll be on stage singing and making with the frivolity and hilarity for audiences in Del Rio. So those 2 weekends we will not have a show, and it may be, depending on what's going on with set preparations, etc., we might not have one the weekend before that. But we'll keep you posted. We'll definitely put it out on the Facebook pages, etc., to let you know on as well as on Twitter. But in the meantime, till that fated day comes, we will see you next week on another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.